Hey guys, Jay here. In this methods lesson, we're going to look at probably the most complicated TOEFL reading skill. It's called summarize information. Now, don't be intimidated because the following tasks, the other reading tasks in the TOEFL, are a lot more straightforward. They're a lot, not necessarily simpler in terms of the content, but the question itself is more easy to understand. It's easier to understand. This one, whoa, it's a trick. So you need a method to do this one. You need to understand what this question is asking you to do. So that's what we're going to do in this lesson. First of all, what does this question look like? Well, this is the first thing you'll see. You'll see text. Here we have 7 paragraphs related to a single topic. And then this is what the actual question looks like, and it's a real doozy. So what do you have to do? I'm going to walk you through it. So there's an introductory sentence for a brief summary of the passage provided below. What that means is that passage of text we looked at, there's an introductory sentence written here about it. It says scientists have linked the mass extinction of the end of the Cretaceous period with a meteorite impact on Earth. Okay, that's important. That's important. Okay, fine. What's next? Complete the summary by selecting 3 answer choices that express the most important ideas in the passage. So here you can see 3 dot points, right? We've got 1, 2, 3. And down here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 sentences. So we need to choose 3 of these sentences here that add information to this based on that text that we saw, which was actually in the text. So some sentences do not belong in the summary because they express ideas that are not presented in the passage, or they are minor ideas in the passage. Okay, so 3 of these 6 sentences you will not choose because they're not relevant, or they weren't mentioned, or they're unimportant. Okay, fine. So then lastly, you need to drag your choices to the spaces where they belong. So you'll just get your mouse on test day and you'll drag the sentence here, and maybe this one here. Whoopsie, that should be the 2nd spot, and this one here into the 3rd spot. So that's what you have to do, and it looks really complicated. So what's the method? Well, the method is this. First of all, you need to read the passage and take notes. I'm going to show you what that will look like. You need to read the first sentence of the summary, of course. You really need to understand that. You need to look at your notes and eliminate any incorrect sentences. I'll show you how to do that. You need to choose the sentences that match the main ideas in the passage, and then you drag and drop the correct sentences in the correct order. So let's apply the method. Step 1, read the passage and take notes. Whoa, how do you do that? Because holy moly, there must be maybe 500, 600 words here. So there's a simple way to do, not necessarily simple, there's a simpler way to do that. And that's to read each paragraph and write a mini summary. Okay, you want to write a mini summary of each paragraph. You don't want to summarize the whole thing because it's just too much. So read this paragraph, write a mini summary of the main idea. Get the main idea in maybe 1 sentence from this. And do it again with this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and then this one. That's how you take notes, okay? So you summarize each paragraph into a single sentence that captures the main idea. Fine. So these are what my notes will look like, and maybe you'll add a couple more. So meteorite impacts hazard to Earth. Impacts can disturb environment. 65 million years ago, mass extinction. Cretaceous period, dinosaurs disappeared, etc. You can see the notes that I've taken here. And some of them maybe those paragraphs had sort of 2 main ideas. So maybe from the first one I've got 2 here. That's possible as well. Okay, so I've got my notes. What's step 2? Now I need to read the first sentence of that summary, which is here, which we read before. And it's critical that I understand that because this is the first sentence of the paragraph. It's going to guide my choices for the following sentences. So what's the main idea of the sentence? That the impacts of meteorites on Earth caused mass extinction. Okay, that's the main idea of that sentence. Step 3. Compare the answer options to the information in your notes and eliminate any incorrect sentences. So here are my notes on the left. Okay, so I'm looking at my notes here. And on the right-hand side, here are the 6 sentences presented to me. So what I need to do is I need to eliminate ones that are not in my notes. Remember that there are possibly going to be, some of these sentences are going to be either unimportant, not mentioned, or irrelevant, and I have to go through and eliminate them according to my memory and according to my notes. So step 4, we choose the sentences that match the main ideas found in the paragraphs of the passage. So let's say I look at my notes here and I decide that sentences 1, 2, and 3 were not mentioned, they were irrelevant, or they were unimportant, and I decide that 4, 5, and 6 match my notes. So then step 5, I drag and drop them in the correct order. So let's read this now. So, scientists have linked the mass extinction of the end of the Cretaceous period with a meteorite impact on Earth, an iridium-enriched sediment layer and large impact crater in the Yucatan provide evidence that a large meteorite struck Earth about 65 million years ago. Large meteorite impacts, such as the one at the end of the Cretaceous period, can seriously affect climate, ecological niches, plants and animals. Meteorite impacts can be advantageous for some species which thrive and disastrous for other species which become extinct. So in fact, there's actually a logical order for this paragraph as well. This is clearly the opening sentence. This sentence then follows, this follows that sentence, and then finally we've got the 4th sentence here. And again, we decided that these sentences weren't relevant or important. So that's also an added little bit of complexity there, that you need to put them in the correct order. Fine. Now it's your turn. I want you to read this and I want you to take notes. I'm going to give you, say, 60 seconds, maybe a little bit longer. Just let me interrupt you there. The most critical thing that you can do here, or certainly one of the most critical things, is to really understand the text that's in front of you. If you misunderstand it, if you misinterpret it, and you write down the wrong note, well, that's going to drastically affect your choice of the sentences in the next steps. Okay? So I want you to read this again, and I want you to make sure you really understand this text. Okay, let's move on. I want you to read this sentence here. A recent study shows how smartphones can be used to make movies of living cells without the need for expensive equipment. Fine, we've understood that. Now I want you to read these sentences down here, the 6 sentences. Let me just move this. And I want you to eliminate ones that were not mentioned in the text and are not mentioned in your notes. You can also use your memory to help you. Okay, let's have a look at the answers. So here we go here. Let's read this and see if you got the same thing. So a recent study shows how smartphones can be used to make movies of living cells without the need for expensive equipment. Live imaging is a very important and expensive undertaking used to research how different medicine affects living cells. During this study, traditional microscopes for this research were replaced with some everyday electronics and smartphones, resulting quality cell culture conditions and top quality imaging. The study makes it possible for laboratories around the world to do the same thing. Now, some of the things we could have eliminated were, well, this one we used, definitely. This one, that the microscopes are no longer sustainable. It didn't say that. Yes, live imaging is very important and expensive. Microscopes used in current hospitals and universities are not as efficient. It didn't say that. During the study, traditional microscopes used for this research were replaced with some everyday electronics. No, it didn't say that. Actually, yes, it did, sorry. Researchers with minimal funding will be able to replace their current equipment with smartphones. Well, it didn't say that. It certainly didn't say replace. It said sort of amend or update or improve, didn't it? Cool. So this is how we can look at it here. We have the correct sentences in the box, we have the eliminated sentences, and we have the ones that match the information in the passage. Thanks very much for watching. I hope that was helpful. And again, that is the most complicated of the TOEFL reading question types. The others are a lot more straightforward, so do watch those, but make sure you do the practice questions so you really get a feel for how to do this particular task, as it is tricky. Thanks for watching.